Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout their business career and share them with us so we can learn from them. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Iain Cox. He's the owner of Unlock My Cloud, providing cybersecurity, governance, and managed service. So, Iain, thank you for being on the show. It's great to have you here. And I want to start off by asking the first question that I always love asking, which is this. If you somehow had a time machine to go back to when you started your very first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
I would say make sure you have a very clear offering that is capable of being bought by your clients. And I know that sounds incredibly obvious, but I think when you start out in business, you think you have a great idea, you think you've articulated it, but you have to actually, I think, ask yourself, what is it and why are your potential clients going to buy that offering? What is compelling about it? And if you can't answer that question, I would suggest that you don't have a great business. And I think clarity around that is hugely important.
Yeah, so clarity on product and offer, and does the market actually want that and solve a problem?
Exactly that.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly that.
Which sounds obvious, but it's been as I've been in business for a long time and coach a lot of businesses, it's not something that people just understand inherently. I think they've got a great idea, but they don't really understand the marketplace around that. Are there any tips that you've learned along the way as you've built your business on things to understand that product market fit, something, anything that's helped you grow with what you're doing?
Yes, I think you have to talk to people. You have to network. You have to be in contact with the market. You can be a great SME. You can know what you do really well. But until you talk to those people out there in the market and you actually understand and can feel their pain, I still think it's very hard to actually provide a great offering until you have that experience.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And it's one of those things where I think as you speak to more and more people, your offering begins to evolve and fine tune. Doesn't necessarily change altogether, but you begin to fine tune your positioning in that, which I think is really, really important. Yeah, great tips on that, Iain. When one of the things I'd like to ask, because I think it's good for business owners to kind of normalize the fact that we all go through a lot of challenges in our business, and that we're not the only ones that go through that sort of stuff. And I'd love to hear what's the number one challenge that you faced in your business, and what's the lesson that you learned from that?
That's a great question. Um, I think the number one lesson that I have learned, and again, it probably sounds quite obvious, is you can't and shouldn't try to do it all on your own. And actually, um, you can approach bigger and more substantial problems, which are actually more worthy of resolution, if you take your time, understand the problem, and then look around your network and understand who can help you solve that problem, with whom can you partner to generate better outcomes, more reliable outcomes, better velocity behind what you're trying to achieve. And I think by working with people and not being afraid of that, um, and making sure that there is sufficient in it for everybody to get a good result, that being the client has a great success and there's sufficient um, interest in it for both you and partners to work together and be motivated. And I think that motivation is a great point.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a great topic, and this is something else I'd like to ask because you mentioned something about people you're working with being motivated. What have you found to help your team be motivated to be on the same journey and path that you're on as the owner and founder? Because oftentimes there can be a disconnect between people just doing their job and what you're inspired to do in the business. So how have you found that to be able to encourage them to come along with that with you?
So I'm very fortunate in as much as I do have some very good people around me. Um, and I think part of what I have done is cultivate long-term relationships with those people, um, which also mean that when I succeed, they also succeed at
Mm,
an individual level. And actually making sure that they can see that and that there is real advantage in it for them as well as for me, I think I think helps things tremendously.
yeah, yeah. So what I'm hearing you is about cultivating the relationship as opposed to just being a cold work environment. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think particularly when you're in a small organization, I think you have to trust the people around you, and therefore you have to know that they're not just another employee. They are there, they are they are employees, yes, or they are contractors, but they are providing something which is vital to you and to your client, and you need to let them know that, and you need to let them understand the context and how to do that. And then, when you can, help them as much as you can with their journey as well. I think
Mm.
it's give and take. And I think actually being able to support people when they need it is a very important message.
Yeah, I love that you've said that as well. It's something I think is really important. You help people with their journey as well. And I think there can be a quite a big disconnect with a lot of owners where it's like, well, they're here helping the business. That's their focus. But if you can understand, they're in it for themselves as well. They've got their own journey in life, you know? And if you can help them, it actually goes back to what you said earlier, where it builds that relationship culture within the business where they feel like, yeah, they know they're doing a job in the business, but you're actually there to help them in their journey in life as well, which I think is really important. Obviously, there's a balance between those things, but I think it's really a healthy thing. So I love that you brought that up. It's a great point, Ian. Um, when you look at where you're going over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years with your business, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve?
So traditionally, my business has been very much based around consulting. Um, And I'm definitely on a journey to move away from a pure consulting type of business to more of a managed service type of business.
Mm,
And I am taking the time and the effort now to work with, again, suppliers and partners to build out very much a strong managed service offering. And I think that helps because, to be blunt, I think that puts the business in a stronger position downstream. It means that it's not just about me, it's not about just about my personality. It becomes very much more about the services that are offered and what can be done with those services. And I think that transition can be quite hard. And I think there's quite a lot of work that needs to go into that. But I think it's one that's absolutely worth doing and rewarding.
yeah, so a little bit of a transition on where you're going, but you feel like that's the right direction you're wanting to go and build with your business.
Completely, absolutely the right thing. I think
Yeah.
because when you get to a certain point in your career, you do start to think about actually what is the value of my business? What can I do with it? And if you want that business to have an end point which is not just shut it down, in other words, there's going to be a trade sale at some point, you have to build value into the business in order for that to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
If you haven't done that, well, what are you doing? Well, yeah, we've got nothing to sell. So I think that's a coherent point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, Iain, for people that are looking to learn a little bit more about you and what you do, what's the best place for them to get in contact with you?
So they can find my website at unlockmycloud.com, and they can email me at Iain, Iain, at unlockmycloud.com. There you go.
Amazing. Yeah, simple. Well, I recommend everyone definitely check out Iain and the places he just mentioned to get in touch with him. And Iain, it's been great having you on the show. Some really great tips. I love what you said around the relationship side and um, that community that you build to help you grow in your business, which is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much for sharing those. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. But until next episode, stay inspired.